What is up, everyone? I am Ryan Anthony Hernandez, and today you are listening to a new episode on the Truth That Heals podcast. Usually, I'll drop an episode maybe around every Friday or every Saturday, but I dropped one very recently, and today I'm doing another one real quick to talk about the healing part of leaving an end times cult. I In my last episode, I broke down more on the trauma, also the mentality behind why we focus so much on the end times, and kind of how I'm trying to share how those things were broken down. So it wasn't like we just woke up one day and said, "Oh, it's the end times." I mean, no, there was more of a structure. And just to kind of refresh our memories, if you haven't heard that episode on healing from the end times cult, the way they inserted these ideologies was by mostly fear, pretty much fear and some religious concepts, but overall it was through fear of that money was no longer going to be worth anything. So once that sets in, now you're thinking, as a member, now you're thinking that, well, since money isn't going to be worth anything, well, shoot, like, why the hell am I going to build up my life? And they also would talk about, like, why worry about getting a degree or about getting diplomas or certificates if that's not going to get you into heaven. But stay with us, study with us, and you're going to be good because this is what God wants you to do. So they really start changing things. First, they change your view of the world, your view on your own personal future, and then they they make you feel guilty if you want to, let's say, plan for a career or plan for an education or planning to maybe even build a family. So there's all this guilt. And before I joined, I had a list of things that I wanted to do. I want to study this, I want to study that, I want to meet someone, and then my goal was, maybe if I'm older, then maybe I will check out the religious life. But when you're with them, it's like, hey, urgency, soon money isn't going to mean anything. Everything around you is going to be in chaos. So you need to make a decision now. You need to have that urgency now and join us today. So, I mean, they're good salesmen, salespeople. They got me. I left my school. I left high school during sophomore year, right after sophomore year. And although there were so many paths in life that I wanted, well, the path in life I wanted to take was to get my education, to finish that, still have a relationship with my faith. And another path I had was that openness to build the future, to build maybe a career or to build a business. There is all this possibility, but all of that was taken away in a sense because now this new idea is given to me that all that is going to be worth nothing. So why am I going to worry about getting degrees and certificates if the world is going to end? So that's the first thing, kind of building up that everything around you is going to count for zero. It's not worth it. Another thing that they introduce, especially in their retreats and in their recruitment, is building up this fear that there's only chaos in the world. So they'll show you, like, shock videos. Uh, the goal is to make the watcher, the one who's sitting at the retreat watching the videos, the goal is to make them feel shocked. It's a shock value. So the more shock you're going through, the more fear, or the more, I guess, like, what they wanted us to feel was building up that us versus them mentality. Them is everyone else. It's like, look at these videos of natural disasters. Look at these videos of war. That's because everyone else is bad. Everyone else is not living the lifestyle that they should. And I'm not going to be telling anyone what kind of lifestyle you're supposed to live or not live. But the way they do this of presenting these videos is to get you shocked. Is to get you to see how everyone is evil. There is evil in this world. I'm not going to doubt that. I'm not going to pretend there are no bad people. There absolutely are terrible people in this world. But they'll show these videos and then they'll change the narrative to really point out we have the solution to this. And our solution is prayer. So if someone wants to pray, go ahead. I find nothing wrong with that. If someone wants to pray on their own, go ahead. Someone wants to meditate, go ahead. But then they jump on this narrative, and the way it is constructed is to make you feel like there's only salvation through this group. Or like the way they built it is that every other group, even though they're religious or Catholic, Christian, their prayer life is not as good as what we have to offer. So you need to stay with us. So now you're kind of getting more intrigued. That's what they want. Now that they've created the problem of the money is not going to be safe, everyone is going to be in chaos and in warfare. Now, how do you be spiritually safe and maybe even physically safe? Is by supporting or by even joining this group. Now, they're going to start bringing up another fear. And that other fear, again, reinforces the us versus them mentality that after this retreat, you need to pray. You need to kind of like watch behind your back. Wow, look over your shoulder because the devil is going to be out to destroy you. Now that you have this gift, you're special. So they want you to feel special, but then they also want you to start living in paranoia. So now you're going to start looking at your family and friends differently because they're inserting these ideas that everyone is evil. And sometimes I remember like looking back at my life, a family member would question like, hey, like what's up with this? And again, those thoughts that they really push during their seminars, during the retreats, that oh, that's the devil. Now I'm looking at family and friends as diabolically infested, and they're trying to bring me down. They're trying to pull me away from God and from the group. So you see how it's working, and then they would introduce the end times. Got to live in the bunker. They'll also say if you drink colloidal silver, you're going to be free from harm when the nuclear bombs blow up. Also, the founder of the movement that I was in would say that we had to put black plastic trash bags over our windows to cover it because when the bombs are setting off all over the United States or in whatever part of the world that you're in, black plastic trash bags are going to keep you safe from a nuclear blast. And when you kind of start thinking about it, it's like, raise your hand. And you can't really ask questions because it's like so ridiculous. But if you ask, they'll shame you kind of thing. So you're like, so it's just a weird environment. But now I want to start getting into the healing journey because staying there for so long, I was in that community for 11 years. And even after I left, I hadn't fully mentally left this group because even while I separated from them, I still saw the founder as this holy spiritual guide who knew his stuff. He was the only one who was right. Everyone else, they were wrong. But I had this guilt because I left. But then I also felt that they had the truth. Now I want to share what was my healing journey. What has it been? Many people say, "Oh, you shouldn't talk until you're fully healed." Who can say when one is fully healed? I believe if I stay quiet, because I did stay quiet, a lot of people were like, "Oh, Ryan is fine." Ryan, he's okay. Nothing wrong with him. But that was the thought of people because I stayed quiet. And that's the expectation of like cults or like even ex cult members who are still protective of their cult. They don't want to speak about it because it's probably that they are not healed. So when I started to speak about it, I had people saying stuff like I just mentioned, "Oh, you shouldn't talk until you're healed." And then I started thinking, "Well, shoot, for several years I have been going through a personal hell, and I guess I fooled you, but I'm not going to fool myself." So silence does not mean healing. Speaking out does not mean healing. I think it's up to the person, how, and also the ability to speak to friends and to be listened to. So those friends, instead of saying, "Hey, you know what? Shut your mouth," I think that if they gave a better listening ear instead of being so quick to judgment or they'll throw a question, what's your point for doing this? It's like I need to speak out. Oh yeah, but why? It's like, okay, now you're being passive aggressive. Now you're trying to silence me. Now you're trying to make me feel guilty for speaking about the abuses that I've been through. That shit don't fly with me anymore. Before I'd be like, oh yeah, you know what? If I speak out, I'm gonna lose friends. Now, you know what? There's the fucking door. There are people who are gonna be in your life, and if they're gonna be in your life as your friends, a friend isn't only there when you're quiet about your trauma. A friend is also going to be there when you have something to open up about. Now, I'm not saying to cry and complain all the time. I'm not even saying complaining. What I'm saying is speaking one's truth, one's story, and what I went through. I'm not complaining. Complaining is, oh, I think complaining is more of like a smaller thing, like, oh, the food tasted kind of nasty. That's one thing. But then when you're speaking about getting beaten, about getting lied to, about members in the movement telling me that I deserved punishment, physical abuse, humiliations, that's not complaining. That is me now speaking about the trauma that has happened in this place. And for me to be in this position now where I am today, able to speak, and I'm not ashamed anymore, because, and this is now getting into the healing journey, is that there are some people out there who are, I would say, true friends, who are not there only when I'm quiet about the bad things. There are true friends who are there to listen even when I, or maybe you or whoever, needs to discuss the ugly things. So friends aren't there for just the good times. If you're just there for the good times, I'm sorry, I consider you just an acquaintance. But if you're able to be there also for the bad times, then that is true friendship. And I'm not putting down acquaintances. I'm not putting them down. But there comes a point in your life when you're going to have to make a decision. Do I see that person now as a friend? If they're going through shit, am I going to be able to also reciprocate that? Am I going to be able to listen to them? Am I going to be able to just give them a little bit of time? Maybe I'm busy, but hey, maybe I can give them some time. I find that to be a true friendship. But if you don't care about them, then I'm sorry, you're just an acquaintance. So going back to these true friends who really gave an ear to me, who gave time, it was so helpful because now I don't feel stupid. Because these other acquaintances saying things like, "Oh, you shouldn't talk about it. Those things weren't really that bad. You deserved it." I think that's actually if, and then they'll say, "You need to heal." It's like, okay, so you see that this person is wounded. Now you're kind of jabbing them more. Now you're trying to open the wound more by having them shut their mouth up. You want them to go to a corner and you want them to pretend nothing happens. What happens to physical wounds? When you have a physical wound and you don't treat it, and let's say it's very deep, that shit's gonna start stinking. It's gonna probably get infected, get gangrene. I don't know. It ain't gonna be a pretty sight. What do? You're gonna treat it. You want to make sure it heals. It takes time, but also maybe in the end there are some scars. I obviously have my scars, but you know what? I'm not going to be ashamed about it. I'm not going to be like, oh, abuse didn't happen. Oh, Father Being and all Mother Agnes, they're good, holy people. No, I'm not going to bullshit myself. I'm not going to bullshit you, the listener or the watcher, or maybe you are in love with Father Being. Good for you. But I'm not going to bullshit you because I care about the truth of what happened in that movement. And there are a lot of great people who joined for holy intentions, wanting to be closer to God, wanting to do good service, but then that got hijacked, money got involved, corruption got involved, spiritual abuse got involved, and then when I left, and maybe for other ex-members leaving, it's like, who the hell am I? I can pretend that I'm gonna be a holy, good person, and that everything that's bad, oh, I deserve it. That's not the mentality that God has given me. I believe that God has given me the mentality of seeing that honesty and being genuine, being authentic, that I have to observe that. That's my personal belief, that for me, I need to be genuine. I need to seek constantly to be a better person, but I'm not going to pretend that everything is nice and dandy. I don't want to live in a fairy tale. And so that's what I believe that's helped me, but also what helped me, not only the friendships, was also the difficulties that I had with my family. So coming out of that world where everyone else is evil, everyone, even priests, they're not as holy as Father Bing's group, or family members. Oh, they're not doing all these prayers. They're not as holy. That messes up the mind. And so coming out, I had that fear with my family. I didn't even want to get like a touch from my relatives, my family, like to get hugs. It was awkward for me just because think about it. For so many years, the only, physical touch I got were maybe beatings or cold touch of correction, because they would correct you a lot. They get a stick and they jab it into you, and they correct you. So when I came out, that was a problem. I have to work through it. And I'm sharing these things. People might think, wow, Ryan, you're being a little bit too vulnerable. Like, like, hey, like, but I'm sharing this because maybe someone else is going through something similar and they haven't processed this, or maybe they've been trying to process it, but the people surrounding them are like, hey, you need to shut the hell up. Or hey, you need to get your life together. And then they ignore those problems. And then they put it in the back of their mind, in the back of their mind, in the back of their mind, until it expresses itself in different manners. So I want to share that because I went through that with my family. Like, how come? And I started wondering, like, how come I can't even give my mom a hug? I mean, I want to, but then like even that, it's like I my body would like recoil. So it took a long time to build that trust with my own family, build the trust with myself, and then with my parents. I came back to the United States after 11 years of being in the religious movement, and I asked my dad flat out, "How do you feel about me?" Because like they look kind of, my parents, they were like, I could tell they were bothered because they didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know who I was anymore. And my father, rest his soul, he was like one of the only people who told me shit as how it really was. And he goes, "Okay, I'll be honest. I'm a bit disappointed." And I asked him why. So you might be thinking, "Oh, what a terrible dad." But bear with me. The reason for his disappointment is because the way they viewed Father Bing, the way they viewed the Alliance of the Two Hearts movement, was that this was a holy movement that was going to give good formation, good education, train us to be adults. But he's like, you came back still like not like you went backwards. He's like, I'm disappointed that you spent 11 years in this place and you don't even have a high school diploma. He's like, I'm disappointed that I let you leave because we thought that you're going to get this proper formation. So now at that time, my healing process was trying to understand my parents, trying to understand how I was duped, because still at that time it took me a while to understand that I was duped. And I know for some people to say that word duped, it can be humiliating, but I have to be honest with myself. That's what happened. They duped us. They tricked us. And and so going back to my father and my parents, and that fear of touch, it built time to build that trust, and it took time for me to understand that what happened to me wasn't my fault. What happened to me wasn't my parents' fault. But there are people in these movements, in these cults, who want you to feel that if you're feeling these things, that is your problem, it's your fault. But at the same time, they had so many chances to be respectful, to be nice, to be at least, at the very least, be Christ-like, and they couldn't even do that. And for me, I call that hypocrisy, because you're talking about the gospel, you're talking about Christ, and yet you're causing abuse, you're causing trauma. So now, okay, first off, the friendships, the acquaintances. After leaving the cult, I had to kind of sift through who are my friends, who just see me as uh, they. There are people who just want to see you once you leave the cult. They just want to. They just want, from what I feel, they just wanted to see me as a holy person praying all day, and that's not me. I mean, I try to maintain my own prayer life, but I'm not going to pretend like I'm some kind of monk. And then I feel the disappointment of the world from like the church people, like, oh, he didn't make it. He didn't persevere. And then my family is like, wow, we're disappointed, not because I didn't persevere, but because like what the hell is going on? So all of these things are going through my mind, but I think one of the best things that I experienced, which was healing for me, and this is my own truth that heals. For me, was that when I came out of that cult, my parents were not like, you have to pray, you have to go to church with us every day, and their approach is more like, hey, you're invited to come pray with us. Hey, we're going to go to mass here. Feel free to join us. It was always free. And even if I didn't join, because going to mass after leaving this cult wasn't easy, going inside a church, I had that paranoia that everyone was freaking evil. Because in the cult, it's like, oh, if you don't pray enough, they're going to give you a punishment. If you're not awake enough during prayers, they're going to give you a punishment. So everything was punished. And then when I come back, that world which the cult had created started shattering. Because now I'm seeing that the way my parents practiced the faith, it wasn't, if you pray, we love you. It wasn't like that. It was, whether you pray or not, we love you. And although all those bad things happened in the movement, and we're disappointed that that happened, we're still going to love you. And then I had friends on top of that, friends whom I care about, but you have to wake up and you have to see that some friends are really just an acquaintance and they're not really a true friend. So I had to lose several people whom I did at one time consider friends. Maybe now they consider me to be demonically infested. I don't know. I don't care. Because what matters to me is that I, I do have true friends whom I can trust, whom I can talk to, and I still have my own personal relationship with my faith. So that's all that I wanted to share. And I wanted to share that because that's the truth that heals for me. That although I went through all of that trauma, all of that abuse, all of that neglect, what has helped me to come heal was the ability to know that I am still worthy of love, whether it be my family's love or friendships from new friendships. Because now that I've been on this journey, I've met atheists, Christians, some other Catholics. I met people who are agnostics, and many of these people are, for me personally, I find them to be more Christ-like than those who were in this religious cult, end times cult, and I find them to be more honest, more genuine. So that's it for today. I just wanted to share. I'm going to be leaving some links on the show notes. So if you wanted to support my channel, help me out with all the work that I'm doing, maybe you want to buy me a coffee, feel free to check out the links where you can support this channel, give a few tips, a few donations if you like, or you can just comment, subscribe, and let me know what are some truths that you have, that you went through, that you've experienced, that has helped you personally in your own healing journey. Oh, and just one more thing before I forget, therapy also helped out a lot, and having a lot of professionals help me during my journey. Can't forget that. Special thanks to them too. And a shout out to Yanya Lalich. I love her book. It's time now for all of us to take back our life. Peace out, y'all.